Hey everybody, this is Denise from loomahat.com. In this video, I want to show you how to loom knit the brim of your hat. And I'm going to show you how to know how many rows you need in order to get your desired width, because you might want a thin one or you might want a thick one. Okay, so let me show you real easy how you do that. You're going to need a ruler or a measuring tape. Measuring tapes are usually easier, but for demonstration this works better. And I want to first let you know that a brim takes double the amount of knitting to make. So you're seeing a number of rows here. It really is twice this amount because the other side is on the back side. This was folded in order to create this brim. Okay, so best thing to do is to get your knitting together and go ahead and knit about 5 to 6 rows, and then come back with your ruler and figure out how many rows did it take to make an inch. And the way you do that is that you grab your knitting and you count your rows. In my particular case, I use worsted weight, I use the Nifty Knitter, and I use 2 strands. And when I do that, I know that I need 1, 2, 3, 4 rows for every inch that I want. And so I usually like a 2-inch brim, and so I know that I need 4 rows for every inch, so 4 plus 4, 8. And because it's a brim, I need to multiply that by 2. So for me, it's 16 rows. I need 16 rows in order to get a 2-inch brim. In this person's case, that they have almost 3 inches, then 4 plus 4 plus 4, this would be 12, but because it's a brim, I need to multiply that by 2, so 24 rows. It took 24 rows for this person to do this 3-inch brim. Of course, up here you don't need to double it simply because it's not a brim, it's the hat, and so 4 rows is an inch. But when doing the brim, remember to multiply that number times 2 because you're going to fold your knitting. All right, so get your supplies and come back and let's start knitting that brim. Okay, so as I explained before, I like to use 2 strands of yarn. You don't have to do that. I just find that the hat looks better. There's less possibility of holes, and it just lasts longer. So I use 2 strands, and so you need your hook, of course. And what you do is you start off with a knot if that's what you want. This is my type of knot. You can do a slip knot, or you could just wrap your yarn around your peg, whatever makes you more comfortable, but it's a good idea to secure it so it doesn't get away from you. Okay, and then we start by wrapping those pegs. Okay, you're gonna do your basic knitting, and you're gonna do this twice around the loom. Okay, pushing them down just a little bit as you're coming around. Push them down a little bit and keep going until you've done this twice. Each peg has 4 if you chose 2 strands, or 2 if you chose 1, and come back. Okay, so you should have wrapped all of your pegs twice, and I'm back up at the front, so I'm going to take my yarn and wrap that last one and bring it forward and hold it with my finger right here. What I want to do is secure my work so it doesn't unravel, so I'm going to start with this 2 bottom ones over the top, and now I know that that's secure and I can let it go. And I'm going to continue to do that around the whole loom. Okay, bottom over top, bottom over top, and you're going to do the number of rows that you decided on. Like I said, in my case it would be 16 if that's what I chose to do. For my particular case, just so you know, in all reality, normally I don't count. I just look at the knitting and I know that my brim's going to be half that amount, so I eyeball it, and once I decide that you know, I have enough, I just stop, and I make that my brim. Okay, so when you come back, when you've done this and you're back here, that's one row, and you could see it right here. Okay, you can see that that's one row of knitting. So if you're counting, then just know that once you get back here again and you're starting to wrap in order to make another row, that was one row, and that at that point you're working on a second row. Another way that you can count that I do when necessary, when I have to count like socks and stuff like that, because I need two of the same, I'll get coins, and every time I do one row I put the coin aside. So you know, if I were gonna do 16 rows, I get 16 coins. Every time I do a row, I put that one coin aside, and I would have 15 coins left, and that way I don't really have to think or focus. If someone distracts me, I don't have to worry about it. I know that I stopped knitting once I finished all of my coins. So that's just one way of doing it. Okay, so as you can see, I'm off now to do my second row. Another thing you could do is change the color of one of the pegs, and you know, that way you don't get too distracted as to counting. You know that every time you wrap that one peg, you're going to count, right? So if you've come through it you know, 3 times, you know, you've come and done this 3 times, then you know, okay, I did it 3 times. You can write it down on a paper or whatever's going to work for you. Okay, so I'll be back once I have, you know, something that looks like 16 rows of knitting, so I can show you what the next part is. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so at this point you should have the number of rows that you are wanting. I don't really know how many these are, but I know that this is twice the amount that I want the thickness of my hat to be, which this actually is going to be a little purse with a brim. So I grab these that are here. They're curled up. It was the first row that you knitted, and each one of these was on a peg, and so you have the same number of loops as you have pegs. So bring these up through here and put one on each peg. You see that? Right there. Next one, and you just keep going until you've put a loop on each peg, and once you've done that, you can basically see the brim. You see it right there? That is my brim. It's a little one. And then I'm just going to begin knitting right here. I'm not gonna wrap my pegs again because I have 2 rows. I have a bottom and a top, and so before I start to knit the top of the hat, the first thing I'm gonna do is to knit these. Okay, to knit the bottom with the top. This right here, which was what was wrapped on my anchor peg, I can just take that and just basically lay it in there so I can hide it, or you can leave it to attach something to it. Like if you want to put a decoration on your hat or something, you can use those 2 strands to do that. Whatever you choose, I usually just hide it inside in between those 2, depending on my plan for the hat. And as you can see, I'm almost done, and there are no leftover loops and no leftover pegs. It was exactly the same amount. Ta-da! Okay, let's see that? Exactly the same amount. So now all I do is get my hook and knit this. And what that's doing basically is like closing your hat. And some of them are going to be really loose. So it's a good idea to sometimes to hold that top one down so you could get the bottom one over it. And then others are like tight. It's really odd the way that happens. But that first row is always really funky. so you know, you might have to hold it down a little bit. And you'll find that the bottom one is really tight and the top one is really loose, or they'll do the, you know, that backward thing where one's lighter and one's looser, but mostly these top ones are going to be really loose. You see that there? And if you don't grab hold of them when you try to get that bottom one over it, you're just going to drag it with it. And if this is your first time making a brim, it just feels all wrong and you feel like it's never going to get right. And so all you're going to have to do is, if you do that, if you let it go by mistake, just put them back in order. You know, put this one under, go get it and put it back all over it and put it on top, and then just do what you were supposed to do the first time. So don't panic, and tell yourself that that first hat is just your trial hat. You're just gonna see what happens. So if it goes all wrong, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? So maybe get some yarn at the thrift store or something that you just don't care. That first hat, you shouldn't stress over it. It should be an easy one. Okay? Anyway, once you've done that, then all you're gonna do is come back with your working yarn and wrap your pegs again and loom like you have before. And then at this point, you're making the top of your hat, which is this part. Okay, that's what you're doing once you're coming back and wrapping again. All right, so that's how you make a brim. If you have any questions, just contact me, Denise at lumahat.com, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. And until the next video or the next project, have a good one.